Welcome to Double Fries No Slaw. It is Wednesday evening, and we are back to preview the FSU Miami game, which comes your way at 7:30 Saturday evening. Is it on ABC? I don't know what it's on. Richie,
it is.
You know this better than I do. Yeah. Do we have the A-list announcing this? Is Herbie there? No, I don't think so. He's doing that early.
Who knows?
I don't think he's there. Double Fries No Slaw brought to you by Guthrie's in Tallahassee. I'm live at Bay Cannon Beer Co. Richie's drinking, looks like a Maxwell there from Bay Cannon Beer Co. You can go to shop.bavana.com. I'll include a link in the comments so you guys can check that out. I'm drinking a hoppy golden sour. Richie's got a stout. So whatever you're into, whatever you're in the mood for, Bay Cannon, appreciate them and their support and taking care of us and letting us do this live here. We are going to jump right into it. We have from The Athletic, Manny Navarro. Manny Navarro is our guest on the Rohan Law Extra Sauce guest segment. We have told you guys about Rohan Law and appreciate their support. Rohan Law specializes in injury cases. If you've been hurt in a wreck or slip and fall, Rohan Law are the Noles you need. Doug and his wife, Julia, are former marching chiefs. There's been some controversy with the marching chiefs this week. Doug graduated from FSU's law school. Just like we enjoy talking strategy, Doug and his team will come up with a winning strategy for your case. Call them today at 888-99-NOLES. That's 888-99-NOLES to review your case for free. If you don't need them today, still give them a follow on YouTube and Twitter. It's at Rohan Law PC. They will be your best friends on your worst day. Manny, how's it going, my man? How are you?
Doing great, man. Can't wait for this season to be over. We're almost done with it.
It's been a grind down there for you. So it is tough. It's tough. I mean, we've gone through it. We haven't had a winning season for 5 years, so we kind of get it. But this one's been a different kind of grind for you. Like, it's wearing? I feel like it's wearing on the fans. Sounds like it's wearing on the media. Is it wearing on the team too? You think they're kind of under that mindset too? I mean, I know they're looking forward to Saturday, but where's the mindset of the team and the staff right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of the kids who were part of last year's loss up in Tallahassee, I think there's certainly a lot of motivation this week. You know, I think they'll be up for the game for that reason alone, the way that they lost it. But I think, in general, are they kind of tired, right? Are they kind of worn down? I think so. I think, they're playing kind of undermanned in certain spots, especially the offensive line. And it's no fun going out and playing physical teams and then losing to teams like Duke and Middle Tennessee State at home and just the booing and the incessant sort of ripping that they're getting on social media. So I'm sure for a lot of the kids, it's kind of like, all right, I've done my 4 or 5 years at Miami. I probably want to get out of here now.
Yeah. You work for The Athletic. You also host a podcast called the Wide Right Podcast. And I've got to ask you, but I'm not going to give you too hard of a time. This isn't Twitter. Yeah. But fans sometimes give you a hard time for the name of the podcast because it's like an FSU theme, though it benefited Miami. But how'd you come up with that? I mean, we got an off-the-wall name for a podcast, too. So, I ain't going to never make fun of somebody for a pod name. But tell me about it.
Well, my producers wanted to come up with something that would kind of honor Miami's history, right? And there's really not many plays that you can really just go to that speaks to you in 2 words or less that tells you about a certain play or a certain game or whatever with Miami. So Wide Right is just something that because of the great Miami FSU rivalries for so many years and how they ended, it's like you say that and automatically it takes you to Miami FSU, right? Like you tell anybody Wide Right, and if they watch college football, they know what you're talking about. So it just kind of worked. It was really my producer's idea. Come up with something like that. I think we were going to come up with something like Through the Smoke, which actually 247 Sports ended up doing like literally a week before we were going to launch ours. So I'm glad we didn't go with that because we would have looked really stupid. But it's just for fun, man. And to be honest, I mean, to me, college football, when it's at its best, it's when Miami and Florida State are at the peak, and playing those kind of games.
Yeah, Manny, thanks for joining us again. Manny Navarro from The Athletic, covering all things Miami. Everybody wants to know, every Miami fan, every Florida State fan. Mario Cristobal said today that he was optimistic about Tyler Van Dyke. What are you hearing? Do you think there's any chance he starts? Could he potentially be an emergency backup? What's his status as of now heading into Saturday night?
Yeah, it's really a huge question mark in terms of the way that the team is sort of presenting it. For me, watching Tyler walk off that field, holding his elbow close to his body and looking like the amount of pain that he was in, makes me say there's no way he's going to be back in 2 weeks. But Bryce Young kind of went through the same thing with Alabama, right? He injured his shoulder, missed the game, and then came back a week later. So I think there's a chance that Tyler could end up playing. But I agree with you, Richie. I think it's more maybe gamesmanship, more than anything else on Mario Cristobal's part. Tyler might be back out at practice. He might be throwing some passes. But I got to imagine that, the plan is probably to start Jake Garcia and only use him in an emergency type role. I know this. I know that, his team, the people representing him, want him to be safe. He's a guy who has an NFL potential, an NFL future. You don't want to rush back from something like that with this offensive line and get hit again, and who knows what that does to your career then. So, we'll see what happens. We'll be tweeting stuff out before kickoff, but there's no way anybody's going to probably break that story. Sorry about that. There's no way anybody's going to break that story unless Mario wants somebody to put out there, and knowing him, he won't.
Yeah, I feel like this is the second week in a row we're going through this, because we had Jeff Sims in the same situation last week with Chris Winkie saying, hey, 3 quarterbacks might play. I think Mario or Gaddis said the same thing early this week.
Right.
But, you mentioned Jake Garcia, so he would be the assumed starter.
Yep.
Ja'Cory Brown's kind of the wild card, and, he's been a lot of wildcat. Cristobal said they've kind of opened the playbook up for him a little bit more. Would this be a situation where if Garcia struggles, do they just try Ja'Cory before they go to Tyler Van Dyke? Because that's a great point. He's a guy that came into the season, a Heisman hopeful, a potential top NFL draft pick. No sense getting him hurt in a season where, you're 4-4 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I could see a situation where Ja'Cory, especially if he gets the backup reps like he did last week, if he's doing that most of this week in practice, which again, we're not even allowed to practice. Mario kind of ended that whole shenanigans where we would get out and watch stretching for 2 days. We don't even get to do that anymore. So, yeah, I mean, I would assume that if Ja'Cory's getting the number 2 reps, he would be the second guy to get in. And it makes sense. I mean, look, to me, he's the future, really. I mean, I know there's a lot of Jake Garcia supporters, but knowing Mario and the kind of offenses he ran at Oregon, he wants a quarterback that can make plays with his legs and can be a dual threat. And Jake and Tyler really aren't that. Ja'Cory's just a guy who, is 3 years starting in high school up in Valdosta. He's a guy who could do it both, but it's different, obviously, throwing the football at the collegiate level and being precise every throw. And that's something that he's still working on.
Manny, the offense has certainly had their fair share of struggles. Before even he got injured, Tyler got benched against Middle Tennessee State, and with Jake last week, it wasn't very pretty against Virginia.
Yeah.
Do you attribute that to first year in a new offense? Is it more on the injuries? A little bit of both? Like what has been really in your eyes the issue with Miami's offense?
Well, I think Mario and Gaddis, come from the school of, run the football 60, 70% of the time and have the offensive linemen that can move guys back and push them back. And let's face it, I mean, Miami was one of the worst rushing teams in the ACC last year. I think they were dead last in yards per carry. And, you start the camp basically by losing 2 of your best running backs, Don Chaney Jr. and Trevante Citizen, who they were super excited about as far as, coming in as a true freshman and making an immediate impact. They thought, 3rd or 4th game of the year, he might be the lead back. And so you lose those 2 guys in camp. Jalen Knighton's dealing with fumbleitis. So basically the offense you wanted to run and the camp that you went through wanting to run, that's not what you end up having to do. You end up having to turn the offense back over to Tyler Van Dyke with a bunch of unproven receivers. And so to me, this last game, Jake, coming off of 5 turnovers basically in the second half against Duke, you had to sort of scale the offense back and really simplify it and just be like, okay, we'll try to run the ball with Henry Parrish. We'll try to score points when we can and just win with defense. And so, to me, that was the game plan. He can't do that against Florida State. Florida State's got a real offense. They can score points. So they're going to have to open things back up. But, it's just like Tyler last year when he first got the starting job from De'Aaron King. When De'Aaron King went down, Tyler looked terrible those first 2 starts. I think Jake, this is going to be start number 2 most likely for him. He's still kind of just catching up with the game speed, being able to read the defense, understanding what he needs to do with the ball. They'll open up the offense a little bit more, but if he struggles, I could totally see them going to Ja'Cory Brown and just running the ball, 70, 80% of the time.
You mentioned unproven wide receivers and targets and weapons, and then even the running backs. Mallory leads the team in receptions. Seems like Colby Young is a name that fans are
Yeah.
really, really excited about as a young guy. Xavier Restrepo, is he back 100%? How close to 100% is he? And, are those the names that if plays are to be made, those are the guys that FSU fans should kind of keep their eyes on this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you hit it on the head. I think between Henry Parrish in the backfield, he'll be the workhorse guy for them as long as he can stay healthy. It's very hard to rely on a 5'10", 100, 85, 190-pound guy to carry it 25, 30 times, but they'll try again with him. But Colby Young, yeah, I mean, he's kind of been the revelation because when they got him out of Lackawanna Junior College, we thought, okay, he's a guy you throw some jump balls to around the end zone. He's 6'4", kind of the way Johnny Wilson is, right? Johnny Wilson light maybe, where you're able to kind of just let him go and use his athleticism and bring the ball down. Well, it took till game 5, game 6 for him really to get going, and it's understandable. But now he's kind of the number one guy, to be honest with you. He's kind of the main option with deep balls and everything else. And then as far as Xavier Restrepo, he came back, played 16 snaps, limited action. He was on a pitch count against Virginia. I would expect that he'll get more reps, but I can't imagine he's 100% full throttle coming off of a broken foot with surgery and everything else that he had to go through. So I think he'll play. I just don't know that he'll play 60 snaps in this game.
In flipping it over to the other side of the ball, Manny, that Miami front four is really talented, and quite frankly, they've done a great job getting pressure. Just the four of them on passing attempts for the opposing offenses. I think that's going to be one of the biggest keys of the game is Florida State's offensive line versus Miami's front four, and their linebackers aren't bad either. So is that going to be the key to Miami winning if they do want to win this game? It seems like that's where they can really potentially wreak some havoc and make this a game Saturday night.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, to me, that's really Miami's only shot in this game. I mean, I know Florida State's offensive line has improved, and I think Norvell's done a good job, raising the level of play because that was a unit that you think back just a couple years ago, right, to Gregory Rousseau in the afternoon that he had up in Tallahassee with whatever it was, 4 or 5 sacks, and the way they were getting to the quarterback so quickly. That's really the strength of this team now. The problem for Miami is Akeem Mesidor, who's probably their best, defensive end. He got banged up in the Virginia game. I think he was dealing with a hamstring. I don't know how much he's practiced this week, so he may be limited. Really the strength for Miami all season has been, what they're doing at the defensive tackle position. Leonard Taylor, Daryl Williams that they picked up from Maryland. Those guys in the middle are really what's helping them just rush the quarterback with 4 because, they're sort of creating havoc up front for those offensive linemen and leaving the edge rushers one-on-one. So you're right. I think that to me is the strength. But, Miami's linebacker situation also isn't good. Wesley Basaint, the freshman linebacker who they're very excited about, he was dinged up as well in this last game. He may not play either. Chase Smith, who's another reserve, a kid that they were excited about, athletic, 4-star recruit coming out of high school a couple years ago. He's can't seem to get healthy in the 2 years he's been here. So you're basically playing with 2 middle linebackers. Caleb Johnson, who's the backup middle linebacker, they brought him in from UCLA. He's in the middle, and they basically pushed Corey Flagg outside to the weak side, and that's it. I mean, you've got one other guy, Keontra Smith. So they're not very deep there. If I'm Florida State, I'm letting Jordan Travis run the ball and encouraging him to do that because if there's one thing Miami's been able to not do well this year is contain the quarterback when they take off and run.
Yeah, and I think that we will see a lot of that because, Jordan Travis didn't have a single rushing attempt last week, not even a scramble. But you saw they let him loose against Clemson a little bit. That first touchdown, he had a nice little scramble in. But looking at Miami's secondary, how are they looking? Because Florida State, if not the offensive line, the receiving room has been by far the most improved unit on Florida State's offense. Bring in Micah Pittman and Johnny Wilson. We haven't seen much of Deuce Spann lately, and Winston Wright hasn't come in yet. But, Johnny Wilson, Micah Pittman, they've really changed what Florida State's offense can do. I think it's important that Miami can rush just for it and kind of sit back a little bit. Middle Tennessee State had a lot of long touchdown passes. Obviously, 98-yard, that's a fluke, right? You don't draw that up. It just kind of happens. But how do you think Miami's secondary matches up against the likes of a 6'7" Johnny Wilson, Micah Pittman in slot, and the other guys that Florida State returns?
Well, the good news for Miami is that they're getting healthy in the secondary. James Williams didn't play. One of their safeties didn't play against Virginia, and basically, if Cam Kitchens and James Williams are down, you kind of have average to above average guys in terms of coverage back there. But if you have to bring Avante Williams in and play him major minutes, or play an Al Blades, who's a converted safety, former cornerback, you're going to give up big plays, and so they gave up three plays of 30 yards or more through the air against Virginia. Two of them were, throws kind of over the top where they just got beat, but another one was an underneath play where, they just poor tackling. But, they've given up, I think it's now 15 plays of 30 yards or more through the air this season, which I think is worse than the ACC. So they're certainly susceptible to breakdowns in the secondary. But having James Williams back, I think he's a better guy in terms of coverage and responsibility, and not sort of just leaving his responsibilities and leaving a big gap in the middle of the field. So that'll help them. And then I think Tyreek Stevenson, you saw him at the end of the last game against Virginia. They would have lost had he not gotten his hand in there in the third overtime to knock the ball free from their receiver in the end zone. So he's getting healthy. He's starting to play much better. And then in the slot to Corey Couch, he's 4th and 14, Mr. 4th and 14. That was him last year, giving up the middle of that field. He's played much better. He's kind of had a good rebound season coming off of a horrendous 2021. So they're to me, they're improving. They're getting healthier, and they're not giving up the same plays that they did against Middle Tennessee State. And I think having James Williams back will help them.
What about the Miami defense? We talked about how good the line has been, but teams have had so much success running the ball. They really haven't throwing the ball, that they haven't attempted as many rushes. Yeah. Florida State likely gets back Trayshawn Ward. I saw that Trey Benson is like top 10 in the country in broken tackles, but he actually isn't because he hasn't had enough rushes to qualify, but he's still like in the top 10 with like 30 less rushes than the minimum of 100, which is ridiculous to think about. Florida State will try to probably be pretty balanced here, but would Miami prefer Florida State to run the ball a little bit more? Would they prefer them to throw it? Like, how good do you think that defensive front will be against the run game?
It's a great question. I mean, one thing Kevin Steele, Miami's defensive coordinator, said this week that he really appreciates about Mike Norvell as a coach is he'll run the same plays, but he'll mask it in so many different ways and really confuse you. And I think for Miami, that's the challenge, right? I think their issues coming into the season was linebacker. Well, now you're going to have to play Corey Flagg 70 or 80 snaps, right? And Corey was part of that defense last year that was like record setting in terms of missed tackles. They were so bad at it. I think Kevin Steele's done a tremendous job upgrading it, just playing a different philosophy than the one Manny Diaz did, where so much of it was predicated on pressure. He's allowing guys to sit back. There's a lot more gang tackling, so you're not seeing as many missed tackles, but that's also on a defense that has a little bit more depth. And now that some of that depth is gone at the linebacker position, you're right. I mean, if I'm FSU and I'm Mike Norvell, I'm putting Corey Flagg in a lot of coverage situations. I'm throwing the ball to my running backs and saying, all right, guy, tackle him. And that's going to be the challenge for Miami this week is can they prevent Florida State's running backs from eating them alive in the passing game, in my mind.
Florida State opened up as a 7.5, somewhere around their point favorite. It did get up to like 8.5, 9 at one point. I think it is back to 7.5 now. With Miami's quarterback issues and potential injuries, does it surprise you that in a rivalry on the road, like Florida State's favored by that much? It'd be a 10-point spread on a neutral site.
No, I think everybody in Vegas has seen how bad Miami is this year, right? And just how bad they are offensively, and having your backup in there. I think if Jake Garcia starts, I probably would have picked FSU by 2 touchdowns. If it's Tyler Van Dyke that makes a surprise start, then I think it's kind of more of a pick 'em. Maybe you still pick Florida State by a field goal or something like that. I think that's how much you swing it. So I think they're actually being nice to Miami, the fact that they're at home and it's only 7.5 points, if I'm being honest with you.
If it's like a field goal swing, you better not give us a hard time if we push another one to the right. So on your podcast. Manny, we like football, but we also like food a lot. So I'll ask you one off the wall, and then we'll get you out of here. We appreciate your time a ton. But obviously, the Guthrie's is the big thing up in Tallahassee. I'm sure you've had a gut box a time or two. But what's your go-to game day meal down there in the Gables?
Well, listen, man. My parents are Cuban. I was born here, so for me, a good Cuban sandwich, or what they call down here, croqueta preparada, which is basically a Cuban sandwich with croquettes inside of it, kind of like a nice little topping. To me, especially, you know, we're playing all these 12:30 games now, so I got to get something that's a little bit more lunch friendly than heavy before kickoff, since, you know, we're only good for 12:30 TV kickoffs these days. But that's usually what I go to before I head to the stadium.
At least we got you guys on ABC this week, so you don't have to stream it or anything like that.
That's right.
Manny's gonna be getting home late as hell on Saturday night. Waking up Sunday's gonna be brutal.
Yeah.
My man, where can people find your work? Where can they follow you? Give yourself a plug, and then we'll get you out of here.
Sure. Well, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Manny_Navarro, and all of my work is usually at theathletic.com. I'm wearing the shirt tonight, so I might as well plug. If you're in the South Florida area, I mean, you'll see me on WSVN Channel 7 every now and then talking about the Canes. And before, when I was covering the Miami Heat, I'd be on there quite frequently. So, I mean, that's where you can find all my stuff. And at YouTube as well. You can find the Wide Ride podcast on YouTube and on wherever you get your podcasts.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Manny. Have a good one. Enjoy the game this weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Manny.
Manny Navarro of The Athletic, as well as the Wide Right podcast. I could not give him a little bit of a hard time on that, but he's right. Like, I mean, okay, so, you know, I was trying to think about it. Like, you know, if you were going to, like, name an FSU podcast after just one play, like, if you're trying to think of one play, like, what would, I don't know what it'd be either. Just the catch.
The 4th and 14 pod. I mean,
Punt-Rooski? The Punt-Rooski pod?
That'd be a great name, actually. Yeah.
That's actually write that. Harlan, edit that out. I don't want people to hear that. I gotta write that. Nobody
Let's
here.
trademark that before anyone sees it.
Yeah. Somebody file a registered trademark there. So Manny Navarro, no, great stuff. Really appreciate him for hanging out and coming on tonight. Again, that was the Rohan Law Extra Sauce guest segment. Rohan Law gave away a pair of Clemson tickets in the Champions Club, and now they're going to do the same thing for the second biggest game of the year on the schedule. The biggest remaining game, that's the Florida game. This is crazy, but if you want to enter the contest for a pair of tickets to the Florida Gator game in the Champions Club, it also comes with a parking pass. Text UF-TIX, that's UF space TIX to 850-809-1906. That's 850-809-1906. If you entered to win the Clemson ones, you do have to enter again. And if you want a chance to watch FSU beat UF.
Whoa.
Well, I didn't finish it. While you're still full of turkey on Friday night, text UF-TIX to 850-809-1906. Thanks to Rohan Law for making this happen for one of our lucky listeners. We didn't get his prediction, but it sounded I didn't want to make him actually say it, but it sounded like he's got Florida State either way. I don't think Tyler's playing, just for what it's worth.
From talking to him, yeah. So today, just reading reports, it sounds a lot like last week, right? Like Chris Winkie and Brent Key made it sound a lot like Jeff Sims was going to play. Gamesmanship, as Manny said. I think that's exactly what's going on right now. I do think it's going to be Jake Garcia, and I do think we'll see a lot of Ja'Cory Brown as well. I do think they're going to run two quarterbacks. You know, it reminds me of the Xavier Lee Drew Weatherford days, the old saying, if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one. And I think that's the situation Miami's entering this weekend in. And I think my score prediction coming up after our made equal pick six here is going to represent that.
I got to go back in the chat and find out what my score prediction was. But before we get to that, we're going to do our made equal pick six. Harlan, you can jump in here whenever you'd like. But shout out to Made Equal Clothing again. Shout out Trayshawn Ward, who's back this week.
Yes.
Excited for him back. I will say this. He missed a couple of games. But then as soon as that announcement for Made Equal came out, my man's back in action and ready to go. So I'm excited to see him back out on the field this weekend. Made Equal is a clothing brand that raises awareness for racial and color discrimination and financial support for local charities and partners working to bring positive change for it. They're working with the Boys and Girls Club here in Tampa, which is really, really cool to me, being a local Tampa native. And then they've got some up in Tallahassee that they work with as well. The primary objective of the brand is to create a platform for anyone and everyone to talk about race, diversity, culture, and facing adversity in a safe place. The best part is they donate 10% of your order to one of their local partners. Again, the Boys and Girls Club of Tallahassee, the Boys and Girls Club of Tampa, whichever you choose from the list, and they give back there. It's madeequalco.com, and we're going to do a giveaway with them. I'm going to throw it in the chat. If you go retweet and follow them, but you retweet the tweet that I threw in the chat, I'll put it in the description as well. Harlan, if you could actually do that for me whenever you get a chance, you could throw that tweet in the description of the YouTube channel of the video. We'll pick a winner next Wednesday night when we preview the Syracuse game, and we'll order you whatever you want off their website. You want a t-shirt, you want a hoodie, whatever kind of clothing you'd like from madeequal.com, we are going to take care of it for you. So appreciate them, appreciate their support, and go retweet that tweet and give Made Equal CO a follow on Twitter. All right, let's get after it. We've got the over-unders this week. These are from the Barnes Sportsbook, I believe.
So
we can recap last week.
Two of them have been updated, but I don't want to, but I feel like I owe it to the listeners to let Harlan recap last week.
Yeah, transparency is very important. Harlan had a great week. Richie and I, not so much, but I wasn't as bad as Richie, so that's good. Harlan
impossible to be as bad as me last week.
Harlan went 5 for 5. Richie went 0 for 5, and I went 1 for 5, taking our season total to Harlan 31, Richie 27. Myself 24. So I did catch up with Richie a little bit, but Harlan has got a commanding lead here. So
Richie nailed it. He said, Harlan, either I'm going to take a commanding lead or you're going to pass me.
Yeah, you guys disagreed a ton. Yeah. So, all right, let's roll through these for the FSU Miami game this weekend.
All right, let's get going. So Jordan Travis pass yards and Micah Pittman receiving yards are both official lines. The other 4 are from the Barnes Sportsbook. So we'll start with Jordan Travis. I feel like Manny might have hit on something a little bit in the interview with Manny Navarro from The Athletic. We're going to start with Jordan Travis, 34.5 rushing yards. Harlan, let's start with you since you're in first place.
Yeah, so I went the opposite last week and nailed it. I'm going to go over this week, over 34.5.
TJ, what do you think?
Over. Yeah, over on this as well.
We're going to go 3 for 3 on the over because I think they purposely chose not to run him last week, knowing they're going to run him this week, especially if we get in the red zone and we need it. I'm taking the over there. Jordan Travis, so this is an official line, 260.5 pass yards. I'll go first here. I'm going to go over. I think Jordan Travis has a massive day. I'm taking the over on the pass yards too. What about you, TJ?
Same. Over on this one for me.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, I'm going over. I went over last week, and y'all bashed me for it, and he threw for his career high. So I'm going over.
Near 400, yeah.
Now I'll go under. I'll go under 399.
Yeah, well, it's 260.5. So we had someone in the chat earlier asking about Trayshawn Ward. I do think he plays. I think we all think he plays. How many yards will he get is the question. It's at 50.5 rush yards. I think that's fair because we don't know how much burn he may actually get. And Trey Benson and Lawrence Toafili are really good. And Rodney Hill just showed out last week too. So I think that takes away from some of Trayshawn's rush yards. First game back, I think I'll go under. How about you, Harlan?
Yeah, I'm just with how good those backs looked last week. I don't know if we're going to need him to really tote the ball that many times. So I'm going to go under.
I say he breaks one long one. I think he runs for like a 25, 27, 30-yard gain somewhere in there, and then he gets enough to get over it. So I will go over here. I think that Norvell wouldn't rush him back. So I think he's pretty ready to go. He has been your best back all year. I think he's going to get the bulk of the carries. Give me over here. Plus, I got to make up some ground. So.
All right, so this is the other official line we have, which is Micah Pittman, 40.5 reception yards. I feel like that's a really good line. Do you want to start us off, TJ?
Not really, because I was just going to copy off what you guys did. Let me just very quickly look back at last week. So what's so crazy about having as many targets as we have is like Micah Pittman could go for 180 yards this weekend, or he could go for 16, and that's what makes it really tough. Like last week, he had three catches for 22 yards. I'll say he has a better day than that. We got Jordan going over on yardage, so give me the over on Pittman.
Harlan.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over. I've faded Pittman the last 2 times and nailed it, so I'm gonna give him a game. I'm getting everything right, so I'm gonna go over. You have a big game.
This is an opportunity I cannot pass up. I'm gonna take the under. I feel like I have to here because I think it's gonna be really close.
First trick play to Pittman. It's going to be great.
I'm gonna be so upset.
80 yards. When Norvell watches this, he's probably going to write it down. So
and Alfred's going to tip Norvell off and say, "Hey, you wouldn't believe what Richie said. Let's get Pittman involved." But let's go back to QB1. I think this is a great Barn Sportsbook line. We'll find out. Jordan Travis, 2.5 total touchdowns, passing and rushing. Harlan,
I'll go first. I think it's going to be under because I think we're going to stop getting cute in the red zone and just pound it. So I'm going under. But he has a lot of yards, just under on the touchdowns.
So for that same reason, Harlan, I'll go over because instead of the Wildcat or, these jet sweeps, I could see Jordan Travis with just a QB draw. And when you see my point total for Florida State, it'll make a little more sense. I'm going to go over. How about you, TJ?
I'll go over as well. I'm not super confident in this one, I will say. But I do think, I think he at least throws for 2 touchdowns. And so, he could throw for one more. He could run one in. He had the long run against Clemson. I'll go over here, but I'm not real confident. And I just need to make up ground on Harlan.
All right. So our final line is the Adam Fuller gut check line. Miami total points on their opening drive in the second half, over under 2.5 points. TJ, start us off.
Under. I will say this, and just, I won't go full on White Knight or defensive Adam Fuller. Some of the scoring drives have been pretty weird, and I don't believe all on him.
Onside kick,
On the onside kick, the super long return against Clemson, and then the very next play being a trick play. I understand, and then, you like to get on him for the NC State one, but he held NC State to 3 points in the first half. And so when you look at it kind of in totality, I really don't have a problem with the NC State one. And shoot, let's go 4-for-4. Wake Forest scored every single drive in the first half. Well, the second half was just a continuation of that. So I think that because it's happened 4 games in a row, I think that's where we jump on Fuller and say, like, oh man, like I can't believe he's letting this happen. But man, the NC State one didn't bug me at all, because if you told me every week you're going to not give up a touchdown in the first half, but you are going to give one to open the second, like fine. And then the other 2 were really because of special teams. And so I don't know. I think under though. I think that Miami, their offense sucks. So I just don't think they're going to score a lot of points. And so, yeah, I'll take the under on anything like this. Harlan?
Go
ahead, Rich, if you want.
Yeah, we'll let Harlan go last for once. I'll echo that. I think it's going to be under. I was hoping to trap you into getting the over here. Like I said, obviously Adam Fuller, he's been, the punching bag of the Florida State fan base since Mike Norvell's been hired. I thought he's done a pretty solid job this year, to be honest. And like you mentioned, TJ, special teams kind of put him in really bad situations. Clemson running basically the same play we ran against LSU on that, reverse flea flicker to get the touchdown, and then the onside kick, which Norvell said he expected, and you just had a true freshman, kind of freeze up in the moment, allowing them to recover that. Miami's offense is not good, and especially if Jake Garcia is playing, that's rough. I'll take the under here. No points for Miami on their opening drive in the second half. How about you, Harlan?
Yeah, I hate you both for both taking under, but y'all aren't pressuring me into taking the over. I watched that Virginia game last week, even though I had to search the World Wide Web for it. I can't pick Jake Garcia to come out in the second half and just march down the field. So I'm taking the under too.
Harlan, give me a score prediction.
Yeah.
So I've got it. Let me go back to my notes here. I've got FSU 42, Miami 21.
Oof, I will take that every day of the week.
You want me to go, Richie? You got it.
I'll go here real quick. I think Florida State has a chance to really dominate this game. I really do. I think they're the better team. I've heard a lot of people say Florida State's got the much better talent. I don't know if that's the case. I think this Miami team reminds me a lot of that 2017 Florida State team, right? Where Florida State had like the 6th most talented roster in the country, but they just didn't buy into what Jimbo's doing his last year. It just wasn't working out. If Florida State comes out and scores early, like I believe they will, on opening drives this year, they're averaging 7.5 plays, 55.5 yards, 5 touchdowns in 8 games, 1 missed field goal, 1 punt, 1 turnover on downs. Mike Norvell is a master coming out with his opening script. Give me Florida State big. I think it's going to be 35-13 late in the fourth quarter. Miami gets a garbage touchdown, maybe Ja'Cory Brown on a Wildcat touchdown. Florida State wins this comfortably, 35-20. They cover, the over hits. Let's all make some money this weekend.
Florida State wins this big, 31-17. Miami scores one junk touchdown. I won't even necessarily call it in garbage time, but they score a junk touchdown somewhere, and then they go out and earn 10 points. So the defense plays pretty well. Offense does plenty. 31 is not bad at all on the road. It wins very comfortably. Game is never really in doubt. I could see it being like 10-3 or something after the end of the first quarter. So, a one-score game is, I guess, in doubt. But Florida State goes up by 2-3 scores at half. Miami maybe gets a junk touchdown late, and the Noles, run away with this one, 31-17.
Shout out Eddie, who's loving Harlan's prediction there.
State. Touchdown, FSU.
Harlan did the sound before he put the thing up there. My man Harlan repping the maroon and silver.
The Childs Tallahassee. Shout him out.
BBW for life. I don't
What's
know
that
what
mean,
BBW
Harlan?
means. Yeah,
Harlan,
you have to tell me
what is
what that means, because I'm going to get in trouble if I say what that means. Harlan, what's BBW mean?
BBW, something to do with baseball. So we both played at Childs, me and Eddie. I think he was the first class at Childs to play baseball. So me and him have been going back and forth on Twitter. I've got my shadow box up there to my left, so he's always in here, but he'll have to let me know. I think it's baseball something.
I don't try.
All
I
right,
don't believe you.
that seems like something I do not want to search on the internet. So we'll take your words for it.
Appreciate you, Eddie. Richie, any closing thoughts before we get out of here on the game or anything else?
Free Baba.
Oh, yeah. Go back and watch the main show, Big Bad Wolves, student section of old. Go back and watch the main show from Sunday. Richie had a really good rant from Baba Miller. That is getting some national news. Dick Vitale's picking that up. I saw Barstool pick that up. So we'll see. We'll see if some.
I'm waiting for Jay Billis. He loves to dunk on the NCAA, but not when it's Florida State.
Yeah, I spoke with somebody at Florida. I will say this: I spoke with somebody at Florida State, and the fight for that is not over. I do think that getting some national pressure, some national attention on that Baba Miller situation, the suspension for 16 games, could help Florida State in that regard. But we'll see. At least Florida State's not going down without a fight. A lot of teams are getting underway this week. Women's basketball starts next week. I believe like an 11 a.m. game on Monday or something. Can't wait to watch that. Give me some morning basketball. I'm all about that. See Coach Wyckoff make her debut as the full-time, not just interim coach. And then women's soccer takes off in the ACC tournament. Postseason's here. Top 5 program in the country right now. Defending national champs. They play tomorrow night in the ACC tournament. I want to say it's against Notre Dame, who they lost to this year, 5-0. They played Notre Dame after beating, who was it? UVA or something, who was like number 2 in the country. Lost a letdown game.
Let's go.
Yeah, lost a letdown to Notre Dame. So, just confirmed it. Play Notre Dame this Thursday. So let's go get them, Noles. Let's go win the ACC and then win the whole thing. That's all I got, Richie. We will be back later this week for hopefully a reaction show on Saturday night. We'll see how I feel, if I can muster that energy. But thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you to Bay Cannon. Thank you to Rohan Law. Make sure you enter to win those tickets. Thank you to Made Equal Clothing. Go retweet that tweet that I threw in the description, that Harlan threw in the description, and that I threw in the comments, and enter to win a shirt, hoodie, whatever you're wanting from them. We'll pick a winner next Wednesday evening when we preview Syracuse. If you're not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit the thumbs up. It helps out tremendously. And then leave a comment once we get off of here. Tell us go Noles or whatever you want. Helps out a bunch. Thank you guys for hanging out. We will see you guys again soon. Go Noles.